So, have you ever done something that you knew you weren't supposed to do, but you did it anyway, and now you're wondering whether or not you're charged with a crime? Let's say you went to a grocery store or a retail store and you stole some items that you knew you weren't supposed to take. Or let's say you went to a restaurant and you went out to eat with some friends and then you left before it was time to pay the bill. Or maybe you ran away from the scene of a crime and you're wondering if the police are out there looking for you. If you've ever worried about whether or not you're charged with a crime, trust me, you are not the only one. So I am criminal defense attorney Hannah Akintoye, and what I would like to do is share with you the top 3 ways that you will be able to know whether or not you're charged with a crime. So the first way that you'll know is if you receive a summons. A summons is some paper that you essentially get in the mail that tells you you are being summoned or you are being asked to come into court and to answer for the charges. Usually a summons will have the date that you have to show up in court, the time, and then maybe the lead charge of what you are being charged with. Now summons they're usually for low-level offenses, and not a lot of states do this. Now if you receive a summons and you do not show up in court, then after that it is likely that a warrant can be issued for your arrest. So that brings me to number 2, a citation. So a citation is something that you will most likely be aware of before or at the time that you receive it. Sometimes police officers will hand you a citation in hand. Other times you'll have to sign for it to acknowledge that you have to show up to court on a particular day and time. A citation is another type of document that you receive, again, usually in hand, that tells you you have to show up in court on a particular date or time, and then it'll also tell you the lead charge, similar to a summons. Now, similarly with citations, especially the ones that you sign, if you do not show up in court for those, then after that, a warrant can be issued for your arrest. But usually with citations, sometimes what you'll have to do is go to a police station, maybe get booked, get your fingerprint and your mugshot completed, and usually you will not have to stay in jail overnight, and you will essentially appear in court on your personal promise to ensure that you show up. Now, the final one, and the one that almost everybody is worried about, is if you have an outstanding arrest warrant. Now, this is the one that is also the most tricky. And an arrest warrant is essentially a document that is provided or prepared by a police officer and is signed by a judge that says that there is probable cause to arrest you. So probable cause is basically the belief that a crime was committed and that you committed it. And they would articulate all those details in the arrest warrant and ask the judge to sign off to allow them and to give them permission to arrest you. And so usually if there is a warrant out for your arrest, then wherever you are found, you are likely to be arrested on that warrant. Usually with arrest warrants, people are concerned that the police will just show up knocking on their doors, barge in, break their doors, and arrest them in front of all their friends, family, and their neighbors. Oftentimes, if you are arrested on an arrest warrant, it is embarrassing. People are all in your business. They're trying to find out what happened, and then you're seeing the way that people portray you, or the way that people look at you. It's almost as though you're this like huge criminal, and that may not be the case. It could very well be a misdemeanor that you're arrested for, but it usually, oftentimes, it will create a scene if the police show up in lights and sirens, banging on your door, simply to arrest you. So the way that you find out whether or not you have an arrest warrant is by reaching out to the local police department in the area in which you believe you may have committed a crime. Now, the thing about reaching out to police departments is you specifically do not want to reach out to them personally if you believe that you have an arrest warrant. So what you will need is an attorney, right? Somebody else to reach out on your behalf to inquire about that particular arrest warrant. The last thing that you want to do if you think you have an arrest warrant is to talk to the police officers who are trying to locate you and arrest you, and then also make statements about a potential crime that you may have committed. It's a bad look. So if you are unfortunate enough to have an outstanding arrest warrant, don't panic, right? I mean, you have options. Of course, you can run for the rest of your life, or you can turn yourself in. I typically recommend the latter, option B, because it puts you in a position of more control. For instance, let's say you turn yourself in. You have to keep in mind that at some point in time, a judge is going to have to set your bail. And the judge is going to have to determine whether or not you should be released or you should be held in jail. What you don't want is for the judge to think that you are a flight risk and that you will never show up in court because you ran from the police. And so turning yourself in shows the courts that you have nothing to hide. Now, another reason why you want to turn yourself in, and specifically, especially if you're dealing with a lawyer, which I highly recommend, is because a lawyer can tell you when to turn yourself in. Usually, if a client or a potential client reaches out to me and they tell me, hey, I think I may have an arrest warrant, or I have to turn myself in, what I will do is I will tell them a date and a time to turn themselves in, or attorneys can arrange with the police a date and time to turn themselves in. Now, I, as an attorney, I'm familiar with when the arraignment process happens, right? So when people are brought into court and they are officially notified of what their charges are. So I, in the court system that I practice in, I'm familiar with that process. I know exactly what days, what times, what locations these arraignments are taking place. And I'm assuming that similarly situated attorneys will know the same. So I am usually going to advise my clients when to turn themselves in. Usually I tell them to turn themselves in, for instance, first thing in the morning, because I know that if they get there at the time that I tell them to get there, then they are able to get booked and processed by the police and then get transported to the courthouse in time to be released the same day. Usually, if you're corresponding with an attorney about an outstanding arrest warrant, you are less likely to spend the night in jail or a weekend in jail if you turn yourself in at the wrong time. So it's always best to have legal guidance and legal counsel about what options you have available to you. So if you're ever in this situation, or somebody who is, just feel free to share this information with them. You are always welcome to reach out to me here or on my website, mydclaw.com, and I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have. I hope you all stay safe, and I will talk to you all soon.